إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستهديه ونسترضيه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة فكشف الله به الغمة. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم، وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. The hadith we were talking about last week was hadith Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started by saying, Ya ibadi, inni haramtu dhulma ala nafsi wa ja'altuhu baynakum muharraman, fala tadhalamu. When Allah said, O my servants, I have forbidden injustice, wrongdoing to myself, and I made it forbidden to you. So do not commit injustice, do not wrong one another. When Allah says, do not wrong one another, and you still see wrongdoers around, we have to know there is a day, there's an end to this. It doesn't last forever. And the oppressors have an end, and their end is always celebrated in the Quran. We have seen an end to one of these oppressors this week, between the last Jummah and today. We have seen the end of one of the oppressors, Bashar al-Assad, and he is a descendant of a family who have been persecuting people for long. More than 50 years persecuting people. More than 50 years putting people in jails under the ground, multi-story jails under the ground. After he left, people were not aware, didn't know the gates to these jails so that they can open and let people out. So it took them time to open them up. When they opened them up, that was a shock, because they found people who are there for 40 years. People from different countries, not only Syria. People are there for 40 years. Some people have been released before that date, and they went to their own home to find another shock. One of them was telling in a podcast that he found his own wife married to his own brother, because they know the information they got that he died. And they have no right even to take the body, to bury it. So she married his own brother, and she had children from him. When he knocked the door and she saw him, she fell down. She was shocked and she fell down. And it's not only one case, it's repeating. So that was meant to humiliate people. And that's exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Fir'aun. Inna Fir'auna ala fil ardi وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. Allah said, indeed, Fir'aun rose. He rose. He have been rising up. But no matter how he rises, he's still in earth. عَلَى فِي الْأَرْضِ. He is on earth. He cannot climb all the way to the heavens. So, Allah said, وَجَعَلَ أَهْلَهَا شِيَعًا. He made its people into groups. Groups. One group will have all the privilege. And another group, all the other group will be deprived of every right. Of every right. Right to honor, right to life, right to whatever human right they were deprived. So we have similar examples in the history mentioned in the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran is celebrating the end of the oppressors and make them listen, a lesson for people to learn. Allah said, and listen to the ayah, فَقُطِعَ دَابِرُ الْقَوْمِ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. This ayah, it will be translated as the wrongdoers have been eliminated. But it's not only eliminated. The ayah means deeper than this. It means the last remnant of the wrongdoers has been taken out. There is nothing remaining of them. And then when this happens, you have to say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah would never let an oppressor to last forever. Allah said in the Quran, ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لفسدت الأرض. If it were not for the fact that Allah repelled people one with the other, the earth will turn into mere corruption. Into mere corruption. So it will not be livable. The earth we live on will not be livable if Allah doesn't let people, good people, rebel and replace bad people. That's the sunnat Allah. وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. That's a natural rule set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And no one can change. So when some oppressor reaches the limit, when they believe they can do what they like, when they believe everything is within the reach of their hand, like Netanyahu is doing now everywhere, killing children, women, men, annexing land. Everyone can see what's happening. He's not caring. No moral, no ethics, no deterrence. They are taking over the politicians in what is called the United States. They are getting fund from wherever they like. They can scare not people, but they can scare countries. If one of the politicians, if one of prime ministers in another state dares to condemn them, they will be under their fire. So when they are at the most of their power, that's when they are the most vulnerable. And we have this in the Quran. When Fir'aun, after long persecution history, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave his mu'jiza, miracle to Musa alayhi salam, when he led his people, and when he hit the sea, and he crossed to the other side, Fir'aun dared to cross on the miracle bridge made by Allah to save Musa alayhi salam. See how vain they are, self-conceited. They think they can do whatever. They think they don't care about the Creator. Allah made a bridge for these weak people to cross to the other side. And He insisted to cross, to pursue them to the last minute. And then what happened? Musa alayhi salam wanted to break the bridge. Allah said, no. وَاتْرُكِ الْبَحْرَ رَهْوًا. Leave the sea still as it is. إِنَّهُمْ جُنْدٌ مُغْرَقُونَ. This is a trap for them. They will be drowned. So the point is, at that moment, Fir'aun thought what he can do, he can do everything. He can do everything. Everything is within the reach of his hand. But Allah said, no, you cannot do that forever. There is an end. So Allah saved these people from Fir'aun. And Allah let him drown. Not only that, he was trying to say the word of Tawheed. But he was trying to declare Islam. But it was too late. At that moment, Allah said, لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا. So at that moment, when you see the death angel, then you cannot say, I'm Muslim, I believe, and even look at his arrogant words. He says, آمنت أنه لا إله إلا الذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل. He said, today I believe, now I believe in the only God in which the people of Israel believe. So I'm adopting your God. So Musa alayhi salam for long has been telling you, Rabbul Alameen, He's the Lord of the worlds. He's the Lord of you and me and everyone. And even at that moment, He's still using this language. I believe in the one in which those poor people believed. Allah said, no, الآن وقد عصيت قبل. Now, too late. وكنت من المفسدين. You have been disobedient for long. You have been corrupted for long. You have been rotten for long. And now you want to change? When there was no more choice for you except to change? So, it's not accepted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, what? اليوم ننجيك ببدنك لتكون لمن خلفك آية. Now we are saving your body. And his body was left offshore for other people to learn a lesson, to see the end of the oppressors. The end of the oppressors. But the question is, do oppressors learn the lesson? They never learn. Everyone thinks he is an exception. Hitler before, other oppressors of any kind, of any race, in any stages in history, everyone thought that he can save himself. He's exceptional. And that's what happens to them at the end. And that actually explains to us how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving a respite, giving more time for the zalimin, the oppressors. Allah said, وَأُمْلِي لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. And we give them respite, we give them time. Why? Because the plan of Allah is well netted. The plan of Allah, they can never escape. And if someone, like the simple explanation of this, if someone falls off the chair, that will not hurt a lot. But if he rises high and then falls off a cliff or a high tower, that is the one which will crush his body. That is the one which will make him a lesson. And then he will end and life will continue. So we have to learn a lesson. We cannot rely on the wrongdoers. Allah said, وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارُ وَمَا لَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ مِنْ أَوْلِيَاءَ ثُمَّ لَا تُنصَرُونَ. And do not rely on, do not collaborate with, do not cooperate with, do not trust the wrongdoers, the oppressors. Otherwise, what will happen to you? The fire will touch you. And you have no ally besides Allah. And you never be given support by Allah. So, that's how it is. And some of us who believe they can stand unique when they hold different views to the majority, to the mainstream, and there is no problem for you to be different, but it's not at the expenses of the truth. Some try to single themselves out by holding a different view and defend their oppressors. And say, look what happened to Syria. What happened to Syria? Israel is expanding. They hit the infrastructure. 70% of the army infrastructure was hit. Yes, this happened. What did this army do before? They, like, more than 40 years, 50 years, since 1973 or 74, no one single shoot at the Israelis. And the Israelis have been going everywhere in Syria, hitting what they like. And no one stopped them. They always preserve the right to counterattack. They have been holding this right for ages, for decades. They never practiced it. And these armies were used only to kill their own people. And actually, that's our misfortune, if there is any misfortune, for the Muslim world, that we are ruled by minorities. Minorities. We are accused that we do not respect the minority rights, and the minorities are ruling over us everywhere in the Muslim world. Nearly everywhere in the Muslim world. Minorities. These minorities can be religious minority, can be dynasties, families, can be group interests or interest groups, like military, ruling over the Muslim world, and they are not allowing us to fight for our freedom or do whatever. But it's coming. It's coming, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Having said that, Musa alayhi salam has a long history, leading his people through the way of, or to freedom, to liberty. Since day one, he said to Fir'aun, and arsil ma'iya bani Israel. Let the people of Israel join me. Let them come with me. I'll lead them out of your land. Just let them go. He's not letting them go. He doesn't want them to leave. He wants them to stay under his power, to exercise slavery, to exercise persecution, whatever he wants to do to them. So he's denying them the right to leave, the freedom to leave to another land and start a new life. But also these people, there was a question, did these people deserve freedom, liberty? It looks like they didn't deserve it at that moment. Of course, everyone deserves freedom, liberty. That's the right for everyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, La ikraha fi din. No coercion in religion. So if you are not forced to accept the religion of Islam, which is considered the only true religion, and there is no one can force you to accept it, then no one can force anyone to do anything less than that. and other than that. So this is actually the honoring, how Islam honors people's freedom. Now, these people, the question should be, were these people ready to practice the right of freedom? They were still tied up at that moment. They were still tied up to the old culture, the culture of slavery. So when Musa alayhi salam led them to the other side of the sea, what they said, اجعل لنا إلها كما لهم آلهة. Make a God for us as they have so many gods. So Allah is freeing you by making you His own slave, because the moment you become a slave of Allah, you are free of every other slavery. You cannot be a slave of someone else, because Allah is one. But the moment a person makes himself a god of someone else, a slave to someone else, he's choosing and preferring slavery to freedom. So they said, make a god for us as they have a god. And then Musa alayhi salam, he reprimanded them. He talked to them in a very tough way. How come you say this after Allah saved you? And then later, when Musa left to receive the Torah, the book of guidance to these people, what they did, they made a god of gold, and they started worshiping him. So sometimes people are not ready, and this mindset needs to change. People need to be aware of their rights, of what they can do, of the power they have, the inherent power which Allah created people with, and then they will never compromise their rights. أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ولي الصالحين وأشهد أن سيدنا محمد رسول الله إمام المتقين. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. We need always to remember the end of the oppressors and the good destiny for the people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how He plans for righteousness. We have a good example, so many examples, but one of them is the one in Surah Al-Ahzab. Ahzab means the factions, and these were actually what you can call a regional coalition made of different tribes. And the one who led this coalition and made it is the Jews living in Khaybar at that time. They lobbied the Arabs against the Muslims in Medina, in the small city of Medina. They brought to them people from Najd, Far East, people from North themselves, and people from Mecca, south to Medina. They brought all these together, and they planned a besiege to circle Medina, to eliminate Muslims, kill men, and take women and children as slaves with them. And they thought there would be no Islam. There would be no Muhammad anymore. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired the Muslims. They made the trench, as we know. Listen what the Quran is saying here. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu dhkuru ni'matallahi alaykum. O those who believe, remember the blessing of Allah upon you. إِذْ جَاءُوكُم مِّن فَوْقِكُمْ وَمِنْ أَسْفَلَ مِنْكُمْ. When they came to you from above and from below. وَإِذْ زَاغَتِ الْأَبْصَارُ. And when the eyes turned wild, so scared. You are at the front line, you do not guarantee that your life will be like your family, your kids, if you don't care about yourself. So similar to what we have in Gaza. Actually, what we have in Gaza is very bad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, وَإِذْ زَاغَتِ الْأَبْصَارُ وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرُ. And the hearts trembling, jumping to the throats. وَتَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ الظُّنُونَ. Some started to entertain bad thoughts of Allah. How come? Did Allah abandon us? How this is happening to the people who believe in Allah, and the Quran for long telling us, Hizbullah hum al-muflihun, hum al-ghalibun. Allah is telling that the people of Allah will have the upper hand. So how come? وَتَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ الظُّنُونَ هُنَالِكَ ابْتُلِيَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَزُلْزِلُوا زِلْزَالًا شَدِيدًا. At that moment, the believers have been tested and shaken violently. That is the point. When you are tested, when you are shaken violently, the truth will come out. The truth will come out. We will know which one is genuine and which one is fake. Which one is a real believer and which one is a fake. And that's what Allah said. وَإِذْ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا. The hypocrites and those who have a disease in the heart, they said only what Allah and His Messenger promised us is nothing but fake, nothing but vain. That's what they said. They said when the Prophet ﷺ, when they were digging the trench and there was so stubborn rock in the way, no one could hit it to break by his axe. So they asked the Prophet what to do. Maybe they can do a detour, change the course of digging. The Prophet ﷺ had his own axe and he hit it. What did he say? Allahu Akbar. I have been shown the treasures of Asham. Allahu Akbar. Second one, I have been shown the treasures of Persia. Allahu Akbar. I have been shown the treasures of Yemen. What does it mean? It means all these will be for Muslims. Muslims will rule over all these, will succeed to people in power in all these lands. Did it happen? Less than 10 years later to this moment, less than, maybe you could say around 10 years later, all that was in the hands of Muslims. And Muslims were governing people according to the norms of justice, leading them from darkness to light. What did the hypocrites say about the words of the Prophet? About the promises given by the Prophet ﷺ at that time? He said, he is promising us the treasures of Kisra and Qaisar, the Persian and the Byzantines. And we are not safe to go to toilet and come back? How come does this make sense? So here, the hypocrites. Allah said, وَلَوْ دُخِلَتْ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ أَقْطَارِهَا. If they were stormed by the enemy, 10,000 soldiers, all the people who can fight in Medina are 3,000. And when you are actually between the enemy and your families behind, it's a very bad situation. So it lasted like 1 month. The siege lasted for 1 month. But who made it break? Who break it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah said, إِذْ أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ رِيحًا وَجُنُودًا لَمْ تَرَوْهَا. When we sent wild storms on them and soldiers which you did not see, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put fear and horror in the hearts of those believers. So they ran away. But the point is, we knew which one is genuine, which one is not. Allah said, مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ رِجَالٌ صَدَقُوا مَا عَاهَدُوا اللَّهَ عَلَيْهِ. And the believers, وَلَمَّا رَأَى الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الْأَحْزَابَ قَالُوا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. The believers, when they saw these armies, what they said? This is what Allah and His Messenger promised us. Allah and His Messenger told the truth. وَمَا زَادَهُمْ إِلَّا إِيمَانًا وَتَسْلِيمًا. It only increased them in iman and full submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do we see that in Gaza? Do we see that in Gaza now? Yes. The people's resilience is amazing. It is amazing to the whole world. All the war machines used, the most advanced technology is used against armless people. People are killed everywhere, in hospitals, in the streets, where they are told this is safe haven for you to go through. They are targeted. Men, women, children, sick, healthy, everyone. And like very short while ago, Netanyahu, he put $5 million on the hostages, on the heads of every hostage. $5 million on the head of every hostage. And your family, you will have safe exit for yourself and your family. So $5 million on the head of every hostage. And safe exit for yourself and your family. You can use them anywhere in the world. if you give them one hostage, and no one even cared about what he says. What do you call this? How this is called? Like it's nothing but iman wa taslim. Believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and full submission to what he says. قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. We believe in this. That's a banner, a heading on our life. Nothing will hit us except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has predestined to us. So that's the thoughts we have these days. Like, because some people say, did Allah abandon people in Gaza? If Allah abandoned them, they wouldn't be firm on the ground. If Allah abandoned them, they wouldn't show the trust. They wouldn't show the trust in Allah and His promise. After more than a year, like 14 months or so, more than 14 months now, of massive killing, genocides. And people are sitting there outside, people are sitting far, like on their couch, reclining on the couches, who have weak iman. They say, what happened to these people? What crazy plan they had to kill themselves. So they are blamed, they are the victims, and they are the blamed, according to these weak-minded, before being weak in their iman. So brothers, no one should say, did that question in the first place. Because we believe that this life is just a test and a trial. And no one is guaranteed rest in this life. No one is guaranteed rest and security in this life. We are in the most secure country, or one of the most secure countries in the world, but you are not secure. Anything of the qadr of Allah can happen to anyone. On the road, at home, on bed, a stroke, whatever. So the concept is, if you are safe from that because you chose not to fight for your rights, you will never be safe forever. And this life is not guaranteed forever for anyone. نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يخفف عن أهل غزة ما هم فيه. اللهم ارحم أهل غزة وأهل سوريا ووفق أمتنا لما تحب وترضى. اللهم هيئ لأمتنا أمر رشد يعز فيه أهل طاعتك ويهدى فيه أهل معصيتك ويؤمر فيه بالمعروف وينهى فيه عن المنكر. اللهم ارحم أهل غزة. اللهم إنهم حفاة فاحملهم. اللهم إنهم جوعى فأطعمهم. اللهم إنهم مرضى فاشفهم. اللهم إنهم مرضى فداوهم. اللهم إنهم مرضى فاشفهم. اللهم عافهم واعف عنهم. اللهم عافهم واعف عنهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم أطعمهم من جوع. اللهم آمنهم من خوف. اللهم استر عوراتهم آمن روعاتهم. اللهم احفظهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم ومن فوقهم ونعيذهم بعزتك أن يغتالوا من تحتهم. اللهم منزل الكتاب مجري السحاب هزم الأحزاب. اللهم اهزم الأحزاب وانصرنا عليهم. اللهم عليك بيهود. اللهم عليك بالإسرائيليين. اللهم عليك بمن آذى المسلمين. اللهم فرق جمعهم. اللهم شتت شملهم. اللهم اجعل بأسهم بينهم شديدا. اللهم اجعل بأسهم بينهم شديدا. اللهم لا ترفع لهم راية ولا تحقق لهم غاية واجعلهم يا ربنا عبرة وآية. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واشكروه يزدكم واستغفروه يغفر لكم وأقيموا الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا